like, okay, that's the kind of church I want to work in. Here's what we think of those rules, wrong. Hey, I didn't think Mike was that far away. What time is it? I don't know. Yes, boss. Mike, I'm here. Okay, yeah, 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 yeah.
Good evening. Welcome to the Friday night Good Friday service. It's nice to see you. Everyone here, I think we know already. Tonight we're going to celebrate Good Friday, and I've always thought that it's ironic we call this Good Friday, because this is the day that we remember Jesus' sacrifice on the cross. I mean, it turned out to be good in the long run for us and for him. But at the time, it was a very dark and painful experience for Jesus. Tonight's remembrance is a service of tenebrae, or darkness. It's based on the 12th century late night service where it gets darker and darker as the night progresses and as the candlelight goes out. Eventually, we will be in as much darkness as the sun will allow this evening, when the last candle is extinguished, representing the extinguishing of Christ's life, Jesus' life. And a large stone will be rolled into place to seal the tomb. Following this last reading, we will be dismissed in silence. And as you leave, please try to refrain from talking until you leave this space. Thank you.
Six days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, the home of Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. There they gave a dinner for him. Mary took a pound of costly perfume made of pure nard, anointed Jesus' feet, and wiped them with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of perfume. Judas objected. Why was the money not used to feed the poor? Jesus said, "Leave her alone. She bought it so that she might keep it for the day of my burial."
I was in the marketplace, in the middle of the marketplace that day, and it hit me like an overwhelming wave of feeling. I loved him so much. It was a love beyond anything I'd ever known. Not romantic, not like a sibling, certainly like family, but he was so much more to me. He was a teacher, he was a priest, he was a wise one. He was hope itself. And for the first time in those days before the terrible thing happened, I felt he might not be invincible. He had told us, he had warned us. He had been saying this could happen all along, but I just couldn't imagine it. He was so eternal, it seemed, like nothing, not even God, would dare to take him away from any of us. But the tension was building. I will beg him, I thought, to not go to Jerusalem. Just go back to Galilee. Go to the hills. Go to Nazareth. Go anywhere, but not Jerusalem right now. But even as I thought it to myself, I knew he wouldn't go. This is where he was supposed to be. With all these people gathered for Passover, Jerusalem is where he had to be. And I knew he might never leave. I suddenly became aware that I was still standing stock still, oblivious to all around me in this marketplace, and I began to double over in fear. But just as I did, my eyes came to rest to the stall on my right. A jar, a beautiful jar of anointing oil. The seller offered it to me for a price that seemed outrageous, and I didn't care. No price could compare with the price of my teacher, my master. I would pay it, and I did buy it. Whether in life or in death, my beloved friend would need it.
Release release our fear. Open our hearts, together we will walk hand in hand.
When they finished supper, Jesus got up from the table, took off his outer robe, and tied a towel around himself. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with a towel. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" After he had washed their feet and returned to the table, he said to them, "Do you know what I have done to you? Learn from me. You call me teacher, Lord. If I have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet."
He continually baffled me. My whole time with him, one surprise after another. Jesus turned my world upside down, especially when it came to relationships. We would worry about who was his right-hand man. And he would always turn it around, his last shall be first stories. I wanted to know where I stood with him. I needed for him to be my Lord, my master, my teacher. And he was. But then he went and he did this that night. Now, none of us were of really high lineage, but we weren't slaves or servants. I mean, at the meal that night, there were people to wait on us. This is a service that just comes with any good room rented out for a meal. But I planned to wash his feet that night. I was overwhelmed with love for him and fear for his life. I had this nagging need to show him, demonstrate to him, that I would do anything for him. But before I could even begin, he knelt before me. He insisted on washing my feet. I was horrified. I thought maybe he was losing his mind. One more time, he reversed the way I thought things would go. He just kept doing that. He said to me, "You can't be part of the family of God, the kingdom of God, Peter, if you don't let me do this." As if I couldn't see that he really meant what he said about serving our neighbors, our friends, and our enemies. He always kept me off balance. I thought I knew what he meant, and then it seemed like I just wasn't getting it. I had to surrender all my preconceived ideas about how relationships are, how they go, who we love. I had to surrender and let this loving act of washing my feet heal my soul and heal every disappointing relationship I'd ever had.
Together. Release our fear, open our hearts, together we will walk hand in hand.
Jesus was troubled in spirit that night, and he said, "I'm telling you, one of you is going to betray me." The disciples looked at each other, not sure who or what he was talking about. Peter leaned over to Jesus and said, "Lord, who is it?" Jesus turned to Judas and gave him his own piece of bread. "Go quickly," Jesus said to him. Do what you are going to do.
Do what you're going to do. That's what he said. Do what you're going to do. Fine, right. You want to die? I can help that happen. We have so many followers by this time. So many of them are here, right now in Jerusalem. We could be able to make a real impact, get the revolution started. Stand up to the Romans. Throw them out of the land. He had such power and charisma. He could have done anything, anytime. He is the anointed of God. And he chooses to do absolutely nothing. My frustration and anger just kept growing. Kept them under control, I thought, but lately they were festering in my gut day and night. We had to get on with the revolution. I was so tired of holding on to that purse, trying to keep enough in it to get us some real weapons. But there was always somebody in need. Might as well have had a hole in the bottom of the thing. Then one day, it hit me. Just yesterday, in fact. The authorities had been hitting for some time about there being a bounty for leads as to where Jesus was. I mean, to them, one unwashed peasant looked pretty much like any other unwashed peasant. Then, if they were going to pay me a little bit, well then, we could get weapons. Yeah, real weapons. And when they came to get Jesus, he would have to fight, have to start the holy war to restore Israel's greatness. Last night, I was at meal with him. I could barely control myself. I was vibrating, anxious for the action to happen. Sometimes I could not breathe, the air thick with fear and unknowing. There we were at meal again, so many meals together, in the field, at the Pharisees, at the tax collectors, sometimes just us, sometimes people who thought they were pretty special, sometimes people who were absolute nobodies. It was a circus. People parading their importance, people trying to trick Jesus to blaspheme, people only wanting a meal, nobody of any use to the fight. Really, he would accept anyone at table, bottom feeders, and he would feed them. Like a mother bird feeds her young, they would open their mouths and he would feed them. More money falling through the hole in the purse. And tonight, he held out the cup of wine to me and dipped bread in it and brought it to my mouth, which fell open in my surprise, in my need so deep and so unknown it felt like I could fall into a pit if I admitted it to myself, let alone to him. And he fed me. I dipped my head to hide the tears blurring my vision, and then he said, "Go quickly. Do what you're going to do."
Release our fear, open our hearts, together we will walk hand in hand.
After dinner,
They went to the Garden of Gethsemane, and Jesus prayed. And then the soldiers came, and they arrested Jesus. They took him to the council and to the governor's palace, where they tried to make it look like a trial. But it wasn't. It was illegal. And then finally, they led him away to the place where criminals were hung, always on crosses, so that they would die slowly, painfully. Jesus was hung in between two other crosses, bandits on each side of him. And the sign over Jesus' cross said, "This is the King of the Jews."
The scene was horrifying. Not that I wasn't used to crucifixions. They were the favored way of putting prisoners to death by the Romans, and so I'd assisted many times. But I'd heard about this man, Jesus. We thought Barabbas was going to be on the cross, but the crowds had become almost out of control. And I'd heard that Pilate simply washed his hands of it, sent this one to die just to shut them up. Who knows what these crowds really were screaming about? There was so much confusion and rumor. No one will probably ever know the truth, is what I think. But when the reality hit his followers that Jesus was really going to die, and they saw him heading to Golgotha with the cross, the horror really began. Even the heavens seemed to be wailing as storms began to appear. Gave me a chill, I'm going to tell you. These are not things I want to tell you. I am a soldier. But it is always easier protecting others than protecting yourself. Protecting yourself from the mothers who beg for mercy for their sons, from those who insist on waiting the hours and even days it takes to die this agonizing death. Being a soldier can't always protect you from what you witness firsthand. Like hearing Jesus talk to the prisoners on the other two crosses next to him. The promise that death is not the end for them. And then he looked at me. Right at me. And he spoke the words I will hear for the rest of my life. And the words that mean I can no longer do this job anymore. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Standing near the cross of Jesus were his mother and some other women he had known well. When he saw his mother and the disciple John there in front of him, Jesus said, "Take this son in my place. Take good care of my mother."
My son, from the moment the angel said to me, "You will bear a son," my life was no longer my own, and yet it was every bit mine. Moments treasured, remembered in my heart alone. Every moment he grew within me, every day of his youth, every movement of his ministry from that day at Cana to this very minute. At times, the pain of watching him give his life away seemed harder to bear than the wonder of this unimaginable life God had given me. And especially now, in this moment, I am not just the mother of Jesus shedding tears for my son. I am the tears of any mother who has seen their child die before them. I am the tears of every mother who has lost children in war and injustice. I am the tears of all loved ones who cannot save their loved ones as they starve or are taken by illness or injury, or are swept away in a tsunami or a flood. I know the tears of mothers whose children lose their lives to addiction or are consumed by depression or lost to violence. And I am the tears of all those who do not know the fate of the missing ones. I am their tears.
Release our fears, open our hearts, together we will walk hand in hand.
One more time, please.
Release our fears, open our hearts, together we will walk hand in hand.
There were also women looking on from a distance. Among them were Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of the younger James, and Joses and Salome, who followed him when he was in Galilee and ministered to him. And there were many other women who had come up with him to Jerusalem.
I was there at the cross, just as I had been there for the last several months, one of his many followers. But I was not just a follower, I was a companion to Mary, friend of Jesus, and a friend of Mary, mother of Jesus. At this moment, they need a friend. So many of the followers had fled as soon as the guards had come to the garden that night. I could not leave. I stayed with my sisters, my friends at the cross, and through the agonizing depth of Sabbath, keeping stillness, until it was time to anoint and prepare his body for burial. I know how to tend to the dead. Tending his body would perhaps help me find comfort during the darkness. there in the tomb with the memory of him, even in his lifeless body. My movements will carry me into a future that I was afraid to face. And so I kept my lamp close so that I could light it and lead us to the tomb after Sabbath had passed. But that is a story for another day. For now, I carry the lamp to keep us company during this vigil. For I know deep down that nothing can extinguish the light, the hope that he gives to all of us, that we carry inside ourselves.
Release our fear, open our hearts, together we will walk hand in hand. Release our fear, open our hearts, together we will walk hand in hand.
After these things, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, though a secret one because of his fear of the Jews, asked Pilate to let him take away the body of Jesus. Pilate gave his permission. So he came and removed his body. Nicodemus, who had first come to Jesus by night, also came, bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes, weighing about 100 pounds. They took the body of Jesus and wrapped it with the spices in linen cloths, according to the burial custom of the Jews. Now there was a garden in the place where he was crucified, and in that garden there was a new tomb, in which no one had ever been laid. And so, because it was the Jewish day of preparation, and the tomb was nearby, Jesus was laid there.